What's up, soul family? Coming at you with another collective reading. If you have angels, ancestors, spirit guides, gods, deities, any or all of the above, then this might be a message for you. Even if they might be something that you might consider to be like a fictional character, I do believe the multiverse exists and messages come from wherever you can get them. But that being said, let's jump right in. And then we have the Judgment card. So maybe whoever this is has been going through a spiritual awakening or has been going through. I feel like one of the most common things in my experience as a tarot reader are people tell me their experiences and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna think I'm crazy," and my response to that is always like, there is not an experience that you could probably tell me that you've had that would allow me to think that you're crazy. Once you start to experience the metaphysical, once you actually start to tap in, you start to realize that any single thing that you've seen within fiction is potentially possible. And that's going to sound like some woo-woo, crazy, cracked out bullshit to anybody who hasn't experienced it yet. But that's kind of like how the nature of those things. It's part of the reason why experience is the kind of like, I guess, gateway to then these things. I can tell people all day that manifestation works or that the divine exists or that you have a connection, that you have all these abilities. But until you start to then actually experience something that then pushes your mind's perception to accept that that's an actual potential or a possibility, it's likely that you're going to remain in a very rigid box, and in a very kind of narrowed perspective until you're able to then witness something that might shift your perspective until that point. So maybe you're somebody who's gone through some crazy shit and people around you don't understand. And you're kind of like, there's no way that like I could tell this or share this with anybody. And I think that's changing over time, but it's understandable that as of now, you might feel that way. So let's see what else is coming out. Okay, cool. So you have like the Magician, and I think this is the Seven of Wands. So, oops, sorry. So, and I know some people read reversals. It's just not my thing. I tend to feel like whatever message is meant to come out comes out in my experience. It doesn't matter if it's reversed, upside down. There are 78 cards, and there are so many different meanings that overlap between tarot. So if it doesn't come out while it's reversed, it'll come out in a different way, shape, and form, at least in my experience. But back to the reading. So I think this points towards, like, with the Magician and the Seven of Wands, it's definitely the energy of somebody who has to, like, stand their ground and trust that you have the magic. The Magician's a card that is, like, it's like the energy of you being somebody who's powerful, you being, like, the creator, you knowing your magic, your ability to interact with these metaphysical or unseen forces, so to speak. Or even if you're starting to learn how to do such, then maybe you're somebody who's been intuitively doing it, or you're getting better at doing it, or you kind of like, because I think, and I don't say this to be unkind, one of the bigger differences between many people who suffer from, I'd say certain, not in all cases, but many people who start to deal with afflictions of the mind and start to like talk to other beings or start to like shout out to the air, like people that we might seem to be or we might think to be crazy, might be tapping into other realms or other dimensions without the ability to fully understand and integrate what they are experiencing within this physical realm. Like I've seen this one guy, I was walking by downtown and this homeless guy was just like talking and it seemed like he was just like ranting. But when I stopped and I heard him, he was like literally speaking like quantum mechanics and channeling shit that seemed like most people would probably think are fucking crazy. But he was literally channeling information straight from source. And it goes to show that many times people who have these experiences might not have the ability or the resources to either facilitate this knowledge into something better, or they might have the ability to fully understand or integrate it into their experience, and then things might not go too well for them. Because I know at the height of my spiritual awakening, it's because when it comes to how reality is created and how we interact with reality, it's all done from a very individual perspective, and it's created and generated in that individual way. So you can quite literally start to experience and generate experiences that are reflective of things that you might only know from your perspective, but other people aren't able to see that, and they think that it's either subjective, they think that it's like, woo-woo, they think that it's something that might just be in your mind without the ability to understand how reality is crafted, how reality is generated, and how we're reacting or how we're interacting with reality from that standpoint. Like I can tell countless people that like I'm a medium and that I've had countless interactions with people's loved ones or with different energies or beings or spirits, whatever the fuck you want to call them, in different ways, shapes, and forms, even extraterrestrial beings, as far as like getting information and trying to connect to other people. But people will, and their lack of understanding what that means, and from their viewpoint, they will simply say, oh, that's cool if that's what you think you did. That's cool if that's what you think you experienced. That's cool if like that's what you believe you went through. And I promise this is all related. Like this is all in correlation to what I'm saying. But if you don't go through those things directly, if you don't understand, or if you haven't had the perspective to then understand what somebody is saying, or at least the ability to then entertain it with skepticism, you're going to approach certain topics with a conflated idea of what they are, put your definitions on that, and then from there it becomes an energy of somebody who is closed off to hearing or seeing what you might have to say or what you might have to offer, especially when you are somebody who starts to connect to spirituality in a way that people are not used to, or people are taught that might be a subjective thing. And all I can ever tell people is that when I connect to people's loved ones and I get evidence, and I actually make sure that I do evidential mediumship in the context of being able to provide somebody with context in relation to the person that they are trying to connect with, so that it's not just me just saying things, essentially, then they don't necessarily grasp that concept. They still think like, oh, well, that's nice if that's what you think you did. But what I'm getting at is sometimes you have experiences that, because of the fact that nobody else witnessed them, nobody else saw them, nobody else walked a day in your life, they're not going to be able to fully perceive or accept that as a truth. But the Seven of Wands is a stand your ground card, and it oftentimes pops up when the experiences you've had are valid, when the perspectives that you had are valid, when the knowledge that you have and the things that you've done are valid. So it's pointing towards doubling down, and not necessarily that we're looking for conflict, or that we're always needing to be like defending our perspective or that our point, but it points towards knowing that the perspective that you held or the experiences that you hold were valid, and knowing that you are right to then within that framework then defend that viewpoint that has come about from those perspectives. I can't make people know that tarot and that mediumship isn't something that is just subjective, and isn't that something that's just a construct of my mind. But I do have every right to stand my ground, push off anybody who has misconceived notions about it, and then allow them to keep their lack of understanding, or allow them to keep whatever they got going on over there, while I put my walls up and while I defend my boundaries to protect that peace. But I'm going to drop that one. We look at the bottom of the deck because this reading's going on pretty long. So then we have the Page of Pentacles. So Pentacles are all about the material realm and how we go through it, and pages are oftentimes about learning. So I'd like to think that with what I've just said prior, maybe you've had these more advanced experiences, or maybe you've had these a little bit more interesting, interactions, and from there, what you're learning how to do is ground that within the physical realm. It's like you're learning how to then apply that non-tangible, etheric, woo-woo, whatever the fuck you want to call it, knowledge, and then fully be able to ground that and pull that into this physical realm. And I think that's one of the things that most people might struggle doing, and something that we continue to work on as we advance our practices. So if there's anything I could say about this reading, it's trust that you're not crazy, trust that you're being led to something, be discerning with what you do pick up, because everything is true. So make sure that you're not entertaining something that's not beneficial to you, or not something that you're able to kind of circumvent. Because in the exact same breath that everything is true, there are times where we are able to shift the flow of what is true, or shift and I know that's very paradoxical, don't get me wrong, but with how fickle and how malleable reality is, we are then able to mold certain truths to our liking. So while we can sometimes acknowledge things that are in front of us, it's always important to know that we can still stay empowered to shift the narrative. For every construct, for every belief, for every reality, there is an opposing one that then holds to be true for another individual, for another experience. So be discerning, trust your path, and don't entertain no crazy shit. Or try your best not to entertain any boring crazy shit. If it's fun, it's cool, and it's safe, entertain it and go all out. But be careful otherwise about what you put your mind to, because some rabbit holes are not easy to fall out or to climb your way out of. But peace and blessings. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next reading.